Imagine diving into crystal clear waters, only to realize your eyes are melting before you can even scream. You are completely blind, and within seconds, your muscles begin to dissolve into a formless mass drifting away in the boiling current. Some rivers on this planet do not bring life. They are ruthless, invisible assassins waiting for a single misstep. Join us and let's discover the strangest rivers in the world. Let's go.
Deep in the remote jungles of Colombia lies a waterway that looks like a hallucination. For most of the year, it masquerades as an ordinary river, hiding its true nature from anyone who walks by. But when the rainy season transitions into the dry season, an explosive biological trigger is pulled. The water suddenly erupts into violent, bleeding shades of crimson red, vibrant yellow, neon green, and deep blue. It looks as if a massive bucket of toxic, glowing paint has been dumped directly into the current. This optical assault is not a chemical spill. It is driven by a highly specialized, fragile plant species called Macarenia clavigera that only blooms under exact water levels and precise sunlight. Imagine a coral reef, but instead of sitting peacefully at the bottom of the ocean, it is rapidly growing and shifting right at the surface of a fast-moving jungle river. If the water gets just a fraction of an inch too high, the plants drown in the shadows and rot away. If the water drops too low, the relentless tropical sun bakes them into a withered, lifeless gray crust. The margin for error is essentially zero. Because of this extreme sensitivity, entering the water is treated like stepping onto a live minefield. Human oils, sunscreens, or a single misplaced footprint can annihilate entire colonies of this rare organism. But while this river demands absolute perfection to survive, another river thrives by consuming absolute garbage.
Number 12. Sataram River. If Caño Cristales is a delicate work of art, our next destination is a terrifying monument to human destruction. Winding through the dense industrial zones of West Java, Indonesia, this river is so heavily choked with rot and waste that you cannot even see the water. The surface is entirely paved over with a suffocating layer of plastic bottles, rotting animal carcasses, and highly toxic industrial sludge. It looks less like a flowing body of water and more like a moving, liquid landfill. Over 2,000 textile factories line its banks, using the water as an open sewer. Every single day, they pump thousands of tons of heavy metals, arsenic, and raw chemical dyes directly into the current. Imagine pouring a swimming pool full of bleach and battery acid into your morning coffee. That is the exact level of toxicity happening here, on a massive geographical scale. The water frequently changes colors, shifting from a sickening, unnatural red to a toxic, foaming black, depending on which factory is dumping its hazardous waste that morning. The fumes rising from the surface are so aggressively corrosive that simply breathing the air near the banks can strip the lining of your throat. Despite being a literal toxic hazard zone, millions of people still rely on this heavily poisoned water for their daily survival. But while human greed destroyed this waterway, human engineers completely reversed the laws of nature for our next bizarre phenomenon.
Only 1% of people know the dark truth behind what we are about to show you next. If you want to be part of the few who actually know what's happening in the world, subscribe and leave a like right now. Done? Look at this.
Number 11. Chicago River. Rivers are strictly governed by gravity, always flowing forward toward the lowest point. But in the late 19th century, humanity decided to break the absolute laws of physics. The city of Chicago faced a catastrophic biological crisis. Rampant disease was slaughtering the population because the city was dumping millions of gallons of raw sewage and industrial slaughterhouse blood directly into the lake where they drew their drinking water. The solution was not to stop the pollution. Instead, engineers executed the most arrogant and terrifying hydrological hack in human history. They forced the river to run backward.
using a massive system of brutal explosive dredging and deep-cut canals. They literally tilted the earth. Imagine grabbing a massive water slide and forcefully ripping it up by its foundation to make the water flow uphill. The operation worked, pushing the city's toxic waste away from the lake and down into the Mississippi River. But this arrogant defiance of nature created a modern nightmare. By connecting two entirely isolated water ecosystems, they opened a biological highway for monstrous invasive species. Today, an army of massive, aggressively ravenous Asian carp is swimming up this artificial channel, threatening to obliterate a multi-billion-dollar ecosystem. To stop them, the government has literally electrified the water. They installed high-voltage underwater fences that instantly shock anything trying to pass through. We weaponized a river with electricity to fix a 125-year-old mistake. But underground, nature is hiding something far more mysterious.
Number 10. Puerto Princesa River. Buried deep beneath the limestone mountains of the Philippines lies a sprawling, lightless abyss. This is not a normal cave. It is a massive, navigable river flowing entirely under the Earth's crust before violently expelling itself directly into the South China Sea. Plunging into its depths feels like being swallowed alive by a giant stone leviathan. The ceilings of this subterranean nightmare stretch up to nearly 1,000 feet high in massive, echoing domes. Imagine floating in a tiny wooden boat through a pitch-black cathedral large enough to comfortably fit an entire modern skyscraper inside. The darkness is absolute, and the silence is only broken by the shrieks of millions of bats clinging to the jagged roof overhead. This isolated ecosystem operates completely cut off from the sun. The creatures here have evolved into alien-like forms, hunting blindly in the toxic ammonia-rich waters fueled by centuries of deep bat guano. Scientists exploring its deeper oxygen-starved chambers have discovered bizarre marine fossils embedded directly into the walls, proving this dark artery was once violently submerged by ancient oceans. Navigating this labyrinth is incredibly dangerous. High tides can suddenly surge into the cavern, trapping boats in a pressurized, lightless coffin with no escape route. The suffocating weight of the mountain presses down on you constantly. But while this river hides its secrets in the dark, our next anomaly creates an explosive, terrifying spectacle directly in the open sky.
Number 9. Catatumbo River. Where this massive South American river crashes into Lake Maracaibo in Venezuela, it triggers a terrifying atmospheric glitch. Above this exact intersection of water, the sky violently rips open in an endless, deafening barrage of lightning. This is not a normal storm. It is a relentless electrical bombardment that strikes the Earth over 1 million times every single year. For nearly 300 nights a year, the clouds ignite with blinding flashes of pure plasma for 10 hours straight. It is the single most concentrated generator of ozone on the entire planet. Imagine standing next to a roaring jet engine, but the sound is made entirely of exploding thunder, and the sky is permanently strobing like a violent high-speed camera flash. The phenomenon is driven by a freakish geographical trap. Cold mountain winds aggressively smash into the heavy, evaporating heat of the tropical river basin. This collision creates a massive, invisible pressure cooker of highly charged atmospheric friction. The lightning is so overwhelmingly bright and constant that sailors have used its terrifying glow to navigate the dark oceans for centuries, nicknaming it the Lighthouse of Maracaibo. But this beacon of pure electrical violence also carries a deadly risk for anyone caught on the open water during its peak fury. A single strike can vaporize a human instantly. While this river weaponizes the sky above it, our next waterway hides a prehistoric, suffocating nightmare just below its surface.
Number 8. Cenote Angelita. Deep in the dense jungles of the Yucatan Peninsula, a terrifying illusion waits for deep-sea divers. At the bottom of a massive, water-filled sinkhole, there appears to be a completely normal river flowing peacefully through a subterranean forest. You can clearly see banks, fallen trees, and a thick, foggy current winding its way through the dark. But this is not water. This subterranean river is actually a massive, flowing cloud of pure, concentrated hydrogen sulfide gas. It is a toxic, chemical nightmare trapped exactly 100 feet below the surface. Imagine taking the deadly, corrosive exhaust of an industrial chemical plant and magically compressing it into a heavy, liquid-like fog. Because the toxic gas is heavier than the fresh water above it, it permanently settles into a perfectly defined, flowing layer. If a diver panics and drops their regulator while passing through this dense, alien fog, the hydrogen sulfide will instantly paralyze their lungs. One breath is entirely fatal. Swimming into this false river completely blacks out all natural light, instantly plunging you into absolute, suffocating darkness. It looks exactly like a corrupted, found-footage nightmare where the laws of physics have entirely collapsed. The ancient Mayans believed these deep sinkholes were literal portals to the underworld, and staring into this toxic, swirling abyss, it is incredibly easy to understand exactly why they were terrified of it.
Stark against the blinding white, frozen desert of Antarctica, a terrifying anomaly violently breaches the icy surface. Pouring directly out of the face of the massive Taylor Glacier is a heavy, slow-moving liquid that looks exactly like thick, coagulated human blood. When early explorers first laid eyes on this horrifying red waterfall bleeding into the frozen valley, they thought it was the result of a massive, microscopic algae bloom. They were completely wrong. The truth is far more alien. This dark red liquid is actually highly pressurized hypersaline water erupting from an ancient underground river trapped beneath the ice for nearly 2 million years. Because this subterranean reservoir is completely sealed off from the sun and atmospheric oxygen, it has evolved into a bizarre, alien environment. The water is heavily saturated with raw iron. When it is finally squeezed out of the immense pressure of the glacier and hits the open air, the iron instantly oxidizes. Imagine leaving a massive steel pipe out in the rain until it aggressively rusts, then grinding that rust into a highly concentrated, salty slurry. Remarkably, this lightless, frozen, alien environment is teeming with extreme, surviving bacteria, proving that life can endure in the most punishing, oxygen-starved conditions on Earth. But while this red water is naturally preserved, our next red river is a deeply toxic man-made wasteland that destroys everything it touches.
Slicing through the rocky landscapes of southwestern Spain, this waterway looks as if someone deliberately spilled millions of gallons of toxic red paint across the earth. Its dark red and fiery orange waters are bordered by crusts of vibrant yellow and black minerals. But do not let the striking visual fool you. This river is a highly toxic, aggressive chemical nightmare. The water flowing here has a pH level of exactly 2. To put that into perspective, swimming in this river is the equivalent of bathing in pure, undiluted stomach acid. It is heavily saturated with raw, heavy metals, including copper, arsenic, and cadmium. No fish, no frogs, and no insects can survive this corrosive barrage. The terrifying toxicity is a direct result of 5,000 years of relentless human mining. By endlessly cracking open the earth to extract valuable sulfur and metal ores, ancient and modern miners exposed deep rock to water and oxygen. This triggered an unstoppable chemical chain reaction, essentially turning the ground into a massive factory for pure sulfuric acid. Yet, incredibly, this acid bath is not entirely dead. Alien-like, extreme bacteria thrive here, literally feeding on the dissolved heavy metals and breathing the sulfuric acid. NASA actively uses this exact river as a testing ground,
believing it is the closest biological match to the hostile, ancient underground environments of Mars. While this acid river eats away the surface, our next anomaly swallows life completely whole.
Number 5. Pitch Lake. Hidden in the southwestern peninsula of Trinidad is a body of water that has completely abandoned the concept of H2O. Instead of fresh spring water, this massive, bubbling depression is entirely filled with millions of tons of pure, raw, liquid asphalt. It is essentially a naturally occurring, boiling parking lot that violently swallows anything unfortunate enough to step onto its deceptive surface. The lake looks solid from a distance, featuring a thick, wrinkled crust that resembles dry elephant skin. But the moment you put your weight on it, the ground begins to slowly, mercilessly pull you under. Imagine walking across an endless pool of thick, black, boiling molasses that acts exactly like high-strength industrial glue. For thousands of years, this dark, tarry abyss has acted as a flawless prehistoric death trap. Giant sloths, ancient saber-toothed cats, and countless birds have been completely entombed alive within its lightless depths. When the heavy liquid violently churns and burps massive bubbles of toxic methane gas to the surface, it occasionally spits out the perfectly preserved bones of creatures it consumed centuries ago. The intense, sweltering tropical heat constantly melts the tar, making the entire landscape shift and breathe like a massive, living, dark entity. It is a slow, suffocating, and brutally unforgiving killer that perfectly preserves its victims as a terrifying warning to anything else that gets too close.
Number 4. Black Sea Undersea River. In 2010, scientists scanning the deep, dark floor of the Black Sea made a discovery that completely broke their understanding of oceanography. Flowing perfectly along the seabed, nearly 100 feet below the ocean's surface, is a massive, fully functional river. It has carved out its own distinct banks, winding floodplains, and even features massive underwater waterfalls. If this river were magically lifted onto dry land, it would instantly become the 6th largest flowing river in Europe. How does a river exist entirely inside an ocean? The secret lies in a massive difference in water density. Highly concentrated, heavy salt water violently spills from the Mediterranean, pushing its way through the seabed and sinking directly to the bottom of the Black Sea. Imagine pouring heavy, thick corn syrup into a glass of regular tap water. The thick liquid stays clumped together, forcefully carving a path straight down. Divers who have witnessed this anomaly report a terrifying, surreal experience. You are floating in the dark ocean, and suddenly you look down to see another, faster-moving body of dark water flowing beneath you. If you reach your hand into it, the aggressive submarine current will physically pull you away. It obeys the exact same physical laws as a surface river, eroding the seafloor and shifting heavy sediments in the pitch black. But while this river reshapes the ocean floor, our next body of water turns into a silent, invisible executioner.
Tucked high in the volcanic mountains of Cameroon, this deep crater lake committed one of the most terrifying acts of mass natural assassination in recorded human history. On a completely silent night in 1986, the lake literally exploded without any warning. But it did not erupt with fire or lava. It erupted with an invisible, silent killer. A massive seismic shift violently disturbed the highly pressurized deep waters of the lake, instantly releasing over 1 million tons of concentrated carbon dioxide gas. This violently displaced gas shot into the sky and then rapidly collapsed back to Earth, forming a suffocating, invisible tsunami exactly 150 feet tall. Because carbon dioxide is significantly heavier than normal air, this invisible wall of death aggressively rolled straight down the mountain at 60 miles per hour, completely blanketing the surrounding villages. Imagine an aggressively silent avalanche that instantly deletes all the oxygen from the atmosphere. It killed over 1,700 people in their sleep within a matter of minutes. There was no struggle, no property damage, and absolutely no warning. The victims simply took a breath and instantly collapsed, suffocated by a completely invisible phantom. The lake essentially turned into a massive, silent gas chamber. Today, engineers desperately pump water into the air to release the mounting gas, praying this incredibly hostile environment never detonates again.
Number 2. The Strid. Hidden within the idyllic green hills of Yorkshire, England, lies what is mathematically the most dangerous stretch of water on the entire planet. At first glance, this narrow mountain stream looks incredibly peaceful. It is only about 6 feet across, appearing so small and harmless that hikers frequently attempt to casually jump over it. That decision is universally fatal. This innocuous-looking brook has a completely unblemished 100% mortality rate. Every single person who has ever slipped into its waters has been violently sucked down and killed. There are no exceptions, and there are no survivors. The terrifying secret of this stream is its hidden geometry. Upstream, the river is over 30 feet wide, but it suddenly gets forcefully, violently compressed into a tiny, deep, rocky fissure. Imagine taking the massive, raging water pressure of a giant fire hose and violently forcing it all through a tiny, microscopic straw. The water is turned vertically, violently carving deep, invisible caves directly beneath the slippery banks. Below the calm surface is a swirling, chaotic vortex of high-speed hydraulics that immediately grabs you by the legs, pulling you deep into pitch-black underwater caverns. The current aggressively pins you against jagged underground rocks until your lungs completely fill with water. The bodies are often completely pulverized by the current before they are ever found. But there is one final nightmare that operates on an entirely different level of destruction.
Hidden deep within the frozen, isolated Ural Mountains of Russia lies the single most deadly body of water on the face of the earth. This lake does not kill you with boiling heat, crushing depth, or toxic gas. It kills you on a microscopic cellular level, and it does so with terrifying speed. During the Cold War, the Soviet Union secretly used this lake as an open, uncontained dumping ground for highly concentrated weapons-grade nuclear waste. They essentially poured the raw, unshielded toxic equivalent of multiple Chernobyl disasters directly into the stagnant water. The resulting radiation levels are so incomprehensibly violent that simply standing on the concrete shore of this lake for exactly 1 hour guarantees a horrific, unstoppable death. You will instantly receive a fully lethal dose of raw radiation that aggressively shreds your DNA, completely destroying your bone marrow and nervous system from the inside out. Imagine an invisible microwave field that aggressively boils your cellular structure in absolute silence. In the 1960s, a severe drought dried up a portion of the lake, and high winds violently scattered radioactive dust across the surrounding region, irradiating nearly 500,000 innocent people. To stop this invisible demon, the government literally buried the entire lake beneath 10,000 massive concrete blocks. It is a silent, radioactive grave, proving that the most terrifying monster on Earth is exactly what humans created.
If you thought this was terrifying, you are not ready for what they found in the video on your screen. Click it right now. The truth is worse than you think.